What is up, everybody? It's Clint from the DieHardMMA Podcast, and this is your weekly edition of the Total Takedown, where we go over this week's fight card from a totals perspective, over-unders, how long we think it's going to last, rather than picking a side. And here we go. We got UFC Vegas 29 on tap on Saturday. I'm excited. This card is going to be a bloodshed fest, in my opinion. I think it's going to be extremely violent, so let's look and see if we can find some spots to put our hard-earned cash on and put some extra back in our pockets. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio if you haven't already, and give me a follow at DieHardMMA Pod on Twitter, where, of course, if you have any questions or anything, we can chat about the fights, and I'll get back to you over there. Let's dive on into this bad boy. First fight of the night, women's flyweight fight, Casey O'Neill taking on Laura Procopio. If these fights are out of order, I apologize. They've been bouncing around all week. There's been some late dropouts, some short notice replacements, so everything's going to be a little bit crazy this particular week. Total set at 2.5. The over 2.5 is minus 260, the under 2.5 is plus 220, and this is a spot where, believe it or not, I think we might have an opportunity to cash on an under. So Laura Procopio, high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, she comes out of Nova União, and she's taking on newcomer Casey O'Neill, who has shown to be incredibly aggressive. She's got finishing ability, and she opens herself to make mistakes. So because of that, Casey O'Neill might be younger, she might be explosive, she might have that pop on her punches, maybe she catches Laura. I don't personally think she does, but the option is there. Laura Procopio, on the other hand, can absolutely take advantage of a mistake that Casey O'Neill makes, and she could catch her in some kind of a submission, maybe even ground her and get some kind of a TKO victory. So the under 2.5 at plus 220 is very, very interesting to me. Most of you know I'm already on Laura Procopio. I've got a bet on her, and I did actually take the Laura Procopio by submission prop at plus 950. So I think there's definitely some opportunity on that under if you want to make sure you've got both women included on your wager for Saturday. Lightweight fight coming up next. Joaquim Silva taking on Rick Glenn, and this is a really interesting spot in my opinion. Total set once again at 2.5. The over 2.5 is minus 225. The under 2.5 plus 185. I think the value is solidly placed on that under 2.5. We've seen both guys fully capable of finishing. We've seen both guys finished as well. Joaquim Silva in his one UFC win before he took a long layoff, he was getting his ass kicked until he finally had a comeback from behind type of victory. Rick Glenn, we've seen him take a beating, we've seen him get dropped, we've seen him get rocked. He's been off for a long time too. Both these guys theoretically will have gotten better. Both these guys theoretically will have added new wrinkles to their games, and because of that, I think somebody maybe on the decline, somebody may be on the up track, and both these guys are middle of the road at best, so I think there's an opportunity for somebody to show up and surprise here. Now, there's not a lot of support for it because we haven't seen either of these fighters for about 2 full years, so we're kind of taking a little shot in the dark. Because of that, I definitely like that plus number, and if these guys have sharpened the tools they've already got, well, they were finishers before they left, so now they definitely are probably going to be more vicious, more violent, more capable of finishing the fight. I like that under 2.5 spot. Heavyweight fight, Josh Parisian taking on Rocky Martinez. Total here set at 2.5. Over 2.5 rounds is even money, plus 100. Under 2.5 rounds is minus 130. This is a weird spot to me. The over 1.5 in heavyweight fights generally cashes in, especially in this spot. I like it. If you got the over 1.5, it's minus 185, minus 190. That's a lot of chalk delay, but I'm not sure how this fight ends before then. Rocky Martinez is an absolute tank. This guy does not go down. And Josh Parisian, even though he's got a lot of TKOs on his record, he's a volume striker. He relies on overwhelming and outpacing his opponents to land that kill shot and get them down. Well, that's not something that's going to happen with Roque Martinez. This guy's a brick wall. He's just going to take everything he's got to offer. There is the possibility of some kind of a late finish where if Roque Martinez gets on top of him, gets a submission, locks a choke in, something like that, maybe he finishes late. Maybe Roque Martinez gasses out and Parisian, after having shored up his cardio issues, gets a TKO late in the fight. But neither of these guys have that one-hitter quitter type of pop on their punches. I just don't see it happening. So whether you're taking the over 1.5 and laying all that chalk, or if you're getting fancy and taking that over 2.5 at even money, I think this one more than likely goes to the judges' scorecards and turns into a sloppy heavyweight banger like we usually get seeing on these lower level cards. Welterweight fight up next, Chaos Williams taking on Matthew Semelsberger. Total here set at 1.5. The over is -150. The under is +130. And I got to lean with the over on this one. I know Chaos Williams has that death touch. I know he's got that crazy level of power. And that's one of the reasons why I personally bet on him. But he is low volume. So unless he comes out and he finds that shot and he finds it early, this one probably extends just a little bit. Matt Semelsberger is a guy that we know can wrestle. He's got high pace. He likes to move around a lot. So I think there's the opportunity that Chaos has a bit of a trouble tracking him. Now, Matt has been knocked out before, and that's part of the reason why I like Chaos. I think he can get it done, and he can get it done again here on Saturday. So I think the KO is coming. It's just a matter of when. So for me, I'm not touching this one because I'm already on Chaos, because I think the knockout is coming. We just don't know when, but I do think it probably comes a little bit later. It comes after Matt wrestles and slows down a little bit. It comes after this fight gets extended. Chaos maybe needs some time to find the target and eventually get there. But we have seen Matt be extremely hittable, so don't be surprised if Chaos gets another 60-second knockout on Saturday. Women's strawweight fight here. Kanako Murata taking on Vera Jandiroba, and this is usually the kind of spot where you'd hear me go, oh, it's over, it's a dead over, but it's not. Vera Jandiroba is an incredibly high-level jiu-jitsu player, and she can submit anybody from anywhere. Kanako Murata is not very good as a striker. She's got good solid judo, and she's a wrestler. She's going to engage Vera Jandiroba on the ground in this fight, giving her a easy opportunity to land some kind of a choke. She also has put herself in some very risky positions before. She's been able to get out of them. Will she be able to get out of those spots against Vera? I'm not entirely certain. So this is a spot where I could see Vera landing some type of a submission, but the number just isn't good enough, right? The total is over 2.5 -210, under 2.5 +175. That's not a high enough price tag in a women's MMA fight to get a finish. I don't see Kanako Murata finishing Jandiroba in any way, form, or fashion. So we've only got one fighter contributing to our under, and it's a very specific method of victory. So we're not getting the right number. I got to say over 2.5 based on the line the way that it is. I think Jandiroba is absolutely live to get that submission. I'm hoping Jandiroba gets that submission, but from a betting standpoint, for me, it'd be over or pass, and it's definitely going to end up being a pass. Light heavyweight fight here, rounding out the preliminary card. Aleksei Camur taking on Nicolò Moreno. We have got this man, Nicolò, who has been gone for a long time. Got some high-end training partners, but really we know not a whole lot about him. His first UFC fight was not impressive whatsoever. So he better show some improvements. Aleksei Camur, another kid that really needs to show us something if he wants to keep his UFC roster spot. Neither guy particularly capable of finishing at the UFC caliber level as far as we know. Total set at 2.5. Over is -150. Under is +120. Huge question marks. Both young kids. Lots of room to improve. Coming off of long layoffs. Kind of like the first fight, or the second fight that we talked about. I can absolutely see one of them adding a wrinkle and catching their opponent by surprise. So because of that, I gotta say pass? I mean, I kind of lean to the over. I kind of feel like neither of these guys will be able to put the other one out, and it'll be a slugfest. Maybe they'll grind, they'll hug against the cage, it'll slow down, but it wouldn't shock me whatsoever if one of them showed up with a new skill set and was able to take advantage of a hole in their opponent's game and get some kind of a finish. I just can't put my money on it because we can't see it, and we haven't seen it, and both these guys are very suspect and very low level right now, so we got to see what ends up happening on Saturday before I can put any money on either of these guys. I'm going to say over, but I'm definitely not touching it with my money. Kicking off the main card, it looks like we've got Matt Brown taking on Diego Lima. And this is a fight that looks like it's, dead nuts to the under, right? Under 2.5, +110. Over 2.5 is -130. Matt Brown, a guy that a strong breeze would knock out at this point. He's just taken all the damage in his career. He's 40 years old. He's a brawler. He likes to get in close, blitz people, and try and put them away and put them on ice early. Diego Lima, on the flip side of this thing, he's got a lot of knockouts, but he doesn't seem to have that fast twitch muscle anymore. He doesn't seem to have that power anymore. Now, not that he necessarily needs it against a guy like Matt Brown, but he's not a killer these days. He's not a finisher these days. We've seen him knocked out on the flip side quite a bit as well. So with the durability issues, we have got to look at this under. We absolutely have to. But I have a weird feeling that this is going to be more of a sparring match. It's going to be more of a feeling out process. Like, I don't know that either of these guys want to get KO'd again. So because of that, we may end up with a wrestling match. We may end up with a much slower paced fight. A lot less aggression, a lot less blitz attacks, leaving themselves open to counters. We might see a very defensive approach to this fight. Now, that's just me with my tinfoil hat on. You got to bet the under. You're getting plus money on these two types of warriors, these two guys that are known to just come out and murder people. You've got to bet the under at plus money, plus 110. I don't hate it. I won't argue it, but I've got that gambler's sense tingling on the back of my neck. I'm not touching the under in this particular fight from a betting perspective. Next up, we've got Wellington Turman taking on Bruno Silva, and I talked about this on the podcast. No, not that Bruno Silva. So if you bet Bruno blindly thinking you got a nice price tag on it, that's the wrong guy. Make sure you do your research. We are up at middleweight for this fight. Total here set at 2.5. The total is over 2.5 plus 105, under 2.5 minus 125. And I would have to lean to the under on this one. We've got a classic striker versus grappler. Wellington Turman, a guy that's been knocked out by Andrew Sanchez, who nobody knocks out, so we question his durability. We question his ability to strike greatly because of that. But his bread and butter is the grappling. His bread and butter is getting people down and using his submission offense to put away his opponents. Bruno Silva is a guy that doesn't have a great ground game. He doesn't do the right things on the floor. He gets taken down easily. He gives up his back when he stands up. He's been submitted several times before. So I think there's a path to victory for Wellington Turman. And on the flip side, Bruno Silva is a vicious knockout striker, and he's a guy that carries his power late into his fights. So even if he does decide that he's going to get taken down, he can work his way back up to the feet, and then he can just put a beating on Wellington Turman later in the fight. I could see a late TKO victory for Bruno. So because of that, we got to look at the under. Minus 125 seems reasonable, under 2.5 rounds. You know, if you want to do fight doesn't go the distance, just to make sure you've got that extra 2 minutes and 30 seconds at the end of the fight, that might be where Bruno Silva turns up. Usually speaking, I'm not a fan of the 2.5s or taking the fight doesn't go. You get more money, more value on the under 2.5s, and I'd rather take that extra money. But in this particular situation, it's one of the few times where I would look at the fight doesn't go to distance just to make sure you're getting that extra time in case Bruno Silva needs it to mount a comeback. Next up, featherweight fight, Julian Erosa, Juicy J taking on Seung Woo Choi. And this is another fight where I'm kind of feeling the under here. Total set at 2.5. Under at this point has been beaten down to plus 105. You can get a plus 120 hanging out there somewhere. But basically, ever since Julian Erosa came back, he's been a wrecking ball. He comes in, he forces his opponents into a firefight. He's got massive offensive capability, both in his striking and in his grappling. And he's got serious chin issues. He wobbles in every single fight. His durability is a huge question. Now, Seung Woo Choi, he's a bit more durable. He's a bit more stable. But he's a little bit on the green side. I mean, we've got Julian Erosa with as many losses as Seung Woo Choi has wins, so there's a massive discrepancy here. The opportunity for someone like Julian to pull a move that Choi hasn't seen before, catch him in something, either knock him out, get him on the ground, choke him out, ground and pound, like it's all on the table. It's all here. So because of that, we've got both guys contributing to the under. This is a spot I'm looking at actually pulling the trigger on myself and playing, because Julian Erosa is going to go out on his shield, or he's going to take his opponent out as viciously as humanly possible. So under 2.5 at a plus line, I think that's probably the way to go. Next up, we have got Marlon Chito Vera taking on dangerous Davey Grant. And this is a spot where I have a hard time. So first and foremost, I know we're not picking sides here, but I'm already on Davey Grant. I got the underdog. I think he's looked really good lately. Total here is set at 2.5. The over is minus 120. The under is plus 100. And this is kind of another one of those spots where the total really matches your fighter, right? Marlon Vera is made out of steel. He's made out of iron. This guy doesn't break. So we have yet to see him get finished. He only loses by decision. Because of that, if you're on Marlon Vera, you probably take the over 2.5 at minus 120. You got a better line on your boy. If you're looking at the under 2.5, you're still kind of betting on Marlon Vera because he's a finisher, and we've seen Davey Grant wobbled. We've seen Davey Grant submitted. We've seen him get hurt. So it's one of these weird things where I said the wrong name there. I apologize. Davey Grant is going to be the side that you're looking at with the over probably, because he's going to need to mind his P's and Q's. He's going to need to stay safe. Marlon Vera, on the other hand, is going to be the finisher. He's going to be the one who tries to put his opponent away. He doesn't have a good track record with the judges on the scorecards. So Like, I apologize, I messed that up at the beginning of the breakdown, but if you're looking over, you're looking Davey Grant. The problem is Marlon Vera is extremely hard to put away. That's why you're looking at the decision prop. If you're looking under, you're thinking Vera finds his shot, puts Grant away, hurts him, something along those lines. Now, Dangerous Davey is called that for a reason. Dude's got massive offensive opportunity and output, so don't be shocked if he ends up pulling some kind of a submission or a TKO, because he's been knocking everybody out lately. That's kind of my problem with this fight. I like Davey Grant. I see the value on the dog. I don't want to touch the total because both guys absolutely can finish. The problem is Marlon Vera can't get finished. And I don't want to doubt Davey Grant. If anybody's going to finish someone like Marlon Vera, it would be a guy like Davey Grant that brawls and throws caution to the wind. So it's possible. But I'm kind of feeling Davey Grant by decision. That's kind of my read on this fight. So because of that, I'm going to say over on the 2.5. But from a pure totals perspective, I kind of want to say under. I kind of feel like even money on the under for both these guys, the way they go out there, the way they fight, the way they have ammunition to kill each other, and the fact that it's a rematch and Marlon Vera is looking to avenge his first loss to this man, I can see the argument for the under, that's all. So I'm kind of torn in knots on this particular one. I'm not betting the total. I've already got a spot on the side that I like much, much better. Heavyweight fight, Aleksei Oleinik taking on Sergey Spivak, and another very confusing total in my opinion. Total here set at 1.5. The over is plus 135. The under is minus 155. I mean, Aleksei Oleinik, the book is out on this guy. He's old, he's got the tightest squeeze in the game, and he really only has about 5-6 minutes worth of gas. He'll fight for your money, he'll try to get that finish, and if he can't get you, it seems like he's just shit out of luck. So because of that, everyone's expecting this thing to go under, right? Either Aleksei Oleinik is going to get this young kid in some kind of a compromising position, submit him early, or Sergey Spivak is going to flip the tails and beat the brakes off of the old man. Everybody's super high on Sergey Spivak these days. I totally get it. But this is a spot where Sergey Spivak's best weapon is his grappling. It's his offensive wrestling. So because of that, he's going to be engaging Aleksei Oleinik right where he wants to be engaged. Now, if Sergey's smart and he doesn't want to wrestle with the old man, then he probably stays striking, and he doesn't have the heavy power or the fast twitch knockout that a lot of the other heavyweights have that have been able to put Aleksei Oleinik away. We've seen Aleksei do some serious work on the feet against some high-level caliber opponents, and only the hardest hitters in the division are the ones that are cracking him and putting him away early. So Sergey probably sticks with his jab. He stays on the outside. He keeps his distance. Minds his range. Makes sure the old guy can't get his mitts on him. I would expect a lot of movement and maybe even a second or a third round TKO victory if Sergey Spivak is going to get the win. So really, you're dodging the first round submission bullet of Aleksei Oleinik, and I think this thing squeaks over that 1.5. Believe it or not, if I was going to bet this total, I'd be betting over at plus 135. Main event time, Seung Jung taking on Dan Ige. We've got a total here set at 4.5 rounds, and it's a pick'em, folks. Over 4.5, minus 110. Under 4.5, minus 110. This is one that I want nothing to do with. I know that's not really great for the show. It's anticlimactic, but the total for this fight is nutso because both Seung Jung and Dan Ige are more than capable of going to war. Both of them have fast hands. Both of them have knockout power. Both of them can wrestle. Both of them can slow the pace down. Both of them can manage the range and mind their opponent's offense. I mean, they are both the complete package. This is a contender series, number one contender style fight. I mean, they're not actually battling for that one contender spot, but they're very close to it. Both these guys have been circling that title shot for years. So there's an opportunity for one of these guys to get clipped and put down at any point in time in the fight because their opponent is just that damn good. But both these guys are more than capable of getting rocked, getting hurt, and then surviving and doing the right thing to battle through it and stay in this fight because they know they need a win. They know how high the stakes are. I don't think this fight finishes early. I think these guys respect one another. They mind their P's and Q's. They feel each other out. And if anything, it's going to be a late finish. I kind of feel the over 4.5 in this case, but if you wanted to choose your fighter and sprinkle like rounds 4 and 5 or something when one of them is just exhausted and gets caught with something they don't expect, I respect it. I don't mind that take whatsoever. This is not a total I'm playing, and the side is about the same story where it's almost a pick'em. You could argue either side. So good luck if you're betting on this one. It's not getting my money on the total here. That's the total takedown, folks. Once again, make sure you subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. If you want some Die Hard merch, rock one of the shirts. We've got the Fireball and Popcorn, the Stimulus check, the Die Hard Stimmy that we cashed last week, or you can just rock the old school black. Head on over to Pub Sports Radio shop on the pubsportsradio.com website. Thank you all very much again. Good luck on all your degenerate action this week, and let's roll.